Welcome, Broad Street Bullies. Like and subscribe to the channel. Look, I'm coming with another video. Look, this was on my mind today. Every draft strategy is a winning draft strategy, and what I mean by that is we look at these videos and we get influenced by videos. You might be even influenced by mine, I don't know, but when it comes down to it, people have won using, because everybody argues about which strategy is optimal. People say go robust RB, go zero RB, go hero RB, wait to draft your QB, load up on other positional players, draft Travis Kelce or a high upside tight end easy for a positional advantage and everything like that. And that's all cool and everything, but every draft strategy really literally is a winning draft strategy because everybody has used different draft strategies to win leagues. So when you get caught up in the strategies about how to win, just make sure that you're doing it from your perspective. Whatever draft strategy you use that gives you the success, the most success in fantasy football, use it. But understand that these strategies only work well depending on the fantasy football player. Like, the draft is just a piece of the puzzle. The draft can set you up for success, but as we all know throughout fantasy football, your draft, like your when you draft your team, is not the finished product. The thing that makes these strategies successful is how you hit the waiver wire, how you search the trade market, how you set your lineups. Because just from my 21 years of experience, my 20 years of experience playing fantasy football, I have drafted great teams where I've made all the right moves, waiver wires, trades and stuff like that, and I have dominated. But I've also drafted great teams that have failed to win. And most of the times, if you're failing to win, most of the times it could be you drafted a real bad team. Yeah, that happens. But also it could be how you set your lineups. I mean, if you're experienced in fantasy football, you know that you have weeks where you would have won. You would have won if you would have started that player on the bench or considered another flex option or something like that. And your team is great. Like, when it comes to them setting them lineups, that's the important part. Because I think personally, setting your lineups and like your lineup, like how often you hit on your lineup choices is key. Because you can draft the greatest team in the world, and you can also watch them greatest people ball out on your bench because you decided to start another person that didn't do it for you that week. And that happens. Like, setting your lineups, in my opinion, is really like 80% of the fantasy football season. I mean, because that's what it comes down to. Setting your lineups, looking out for them waiver wire ads and stuff like that. So we could sit here and talk about all the draft strategies we want, but if you're not setting your lineups properly, if you're not making sure you're scouring that waiver wire for the next gem that can possibly go off, whether it's for the rest of the season or the next 2 games, then you're lost. So when it comes down to, we hear all these draft strategies, it comes down to the fantasy football GM at the end of the day. Because what good is drafting a team that is balling, but you keep setting the wrong lineups? Like, setting the wrong lineups can literally take you from a 9-5 record in fantasy football to a 5-9 record. And sometimes if you really did draft bad, even if you set your lineups right, you can still be on the losing end. It happened to me last season in one of my leagues. My team was drafted, I had Dak Prescott, I had Alvin Kamara, I had James Conner. They all kind of busted for me and everything like that. And I was like, I started out 0-6 in this one league. And when I looked at it, and I went back and I looked at how I was setting up my lineups, it was nothing wrong with my lineups. I was trying to find waiver wire pieces, players. I was setting my lineups right, but the problem was my team just wasn't producing enough, and that can happen. And you can have teams that is producing, your players producing, but you're, you know, going with other options and you're just killing yourself. Like, setting your lineups is key, because and setting them the proper way. And when you set these lineups, you don't think about it like people, like, yeah, you can use the projections, but they're not always right. You got to think about it from a sense, like, if you know football, you got to think about it from a sense of how you think this game is going to play out. That's exactly how you do. Like, if you know you got a offensive game, you know that people, if the Kansas City Chiefs and the Eagles meet up, and they are scheduled to meet up, I think in week 13, if I'm not mistaken, you know that's going to be a game of fireworks more than likely. It's going to be a lot of people scoring. A lot of people are going to get theirs. It might be a game where if Devontae and AJ are healthy at the time, they'll eat, and Jalen Hurts will eat. You got to think about it from a way, like, if you got a defensive game, it's going to be like maybe one or two people that really go off on either side. So when it comes to fantasy football, the draft is like a major puzzle. But what's going to sink your teams really is not only the draft, but setting the right lineups. Like, I don't know if people set their lineup just based on projections. Me, I don't. If I'm completely stumped, I'll consider it. But I like setting my lineups based on how I feel that game is going to play out, and who I think is going to be the person that, obviously, you know, the person that can get me the most points. It's all about Phil. So that's really all I got to say. Basically, you know, every draft strategy is a perfect one, but it also depends on who you are as a fantasy football GM, and if you're setting your lineups and you're tackling on waiver wires, or you're making great trades. Because you can set your lineups and you can look at your lineups and look back at your schedule. If you're 10-6, not 10-6, 10-4 or something through the season, and you be like, man, I set some, you know, my team, some people didn't really work out for me, but I've been setting my lineups. I've been, you know, getting them waiver wire ads. I've actually made a solid team. Or you can look at it from the reverse point and it'd be like, man, I'm 4-10. My team, people produce, but I don't set the right lineups, cost me like 6 wins. So basically, that's the basis of this video. Every draft strategy is a winning one, but it also depends on the person who is behind that draft strategy, how active you are as a fantasy football GM. I'm out.